Okay, let's do a little FM real estate weekly breakdown, a little roundup, if you will. This is going to be an exciting one because I believe we have the most expensive sale, at least the most expensive public sale that I could track down um, in Fayetteville Manlius history. So, pretty exciting week. So, just wanted to give a little bit of a breakdown of kind of Central New York pricing in general and how that relates to Fayetteville Manlius pricing. So, in general, houses in Central New York have always been kind of below $1 million. There are very few houses above $1 million, with the exception of lake houses. So, and then even as far as lake houses go, so let's say that you were looking to spend $5 million on a lake house. There's really only two places you could do it. You could do it on Skaneateles Lake, and you could do it on Cazenovia Lake. Now, if you were looking to spend more than $5 million, $8 million, $10 million, that's exclusively Skaneateles Lake. So kind of anything 8 figures is exclusively Skaneateles Lake. Anything really above 5 is going to be exclusively Skaneateles Lake. And then Cazenovia has a handful that are in the $3 to $5 million range, but really most of them are kind of in the $1 to $3 million range. Then excluding lake houses, other than that, there have really only been a couple sales that are, well into the $1 million range. And I could only find one that was above $2 million at all, $2 million and up. And we have one that's under contract. Now, it hasn't sold yet, and I believe they still have an inspection to get through. And so we don't know what it's under contract for, but it was listed for $3.5 million. So we kind of blew straight past the $2 millions, all the way into the $3 millions, and deep into the $3 millions, because it was listed for 3.5. Now, again, I don't know what it was under contract for, but it was only on the market for 31 days, which a house at this price point, typically they are on the market for quite a bit longer than that. It can take a really long time to sell houses in this price range, just because there are so few buyers that are looking to buy in this price range and are able to buy in this price range. So when this one came up, I saw when it came up, and I was like, oh man, so A, that's fascinating, because we just blew straight past the 2s into the 3s. And then also I was like, man, I wonder how long this is going to sit for. And the answer was not very long. So let's take a look at this house. Okay, so $3.495 million. Now, what's really interesting about this house is it is on 101 acres, which is a lot of land. So it's pretty common around here to see, an acre, 2 acres, 4 acres, even 10 acres, 12 acres is not that crazy. 50, 100, that's pretty rare. So when I was thinking about valuation of this house, how much of it is the land and how much of it is the house, in general, the value of dirt in Central New York is very low. So typically, if you're just picking a random quarter-acre lot with a house on it, the overwhelming majority of that purchase price is actually the house itself. Not much of it at all is the actual dirt underneath the house. So that's very different than, especially the high cost of living areas of the country. Like if you're in DC, if you own a $1.5 million townhouse in DC, the dirt is like $900,000 and the actual townhouse is maybe $600,000. Central New York, that's the total opposite. The dirt itself is very cheap. You can get, a quarter-acre lot for, 20, 30, 50 grand, depending on, some variables, obviously. But then the house itself is where most of the value derives from. Now with this one, because we're talking about 100 acres, so then, and it's not that big of a house, 4,000 square feet. I mean, 4,000 square feet is a large house, but it's not a mansion. It's a big house. It's not a crazy big house. So what would a 4,000 square foot, 4-bed, 5-bath, custom built home be worth on a typical lot size of, say 2 to 5 acres or even 10 acres? What is the value of the house, and then what is the value of the land? So, if you're valuing the land at $20,000 an acre, which in Fayetteville Manlius, 1 acre of land is worth more than $20,000. Now there's kind of diminishing returns once you get, past 5, past 10, past 50, into 100. Although it kind of turns back around again because there are so few lots with 100 acres. So it's like you get diminishing returns on the per acre cost as you get bigger and bigger until you like exceed the point that it's like kind of absurd, and now you have so much land that it becomes even more valuable again, because there are so few lots that have that much land that are buildable, that you're going to see have an amazing view and have a whole bunch of other stuff going for it. So anyway, if you were valuing it at 20,000 an acre, 100 acres, that's $2 million. So 2 million of our 3.5 is the land, and then 1.5 is the house. Is that how they broke it down? I would love to chat with the buyers about how they were thinking about the price. Also, this was listed by Sean Hagan. Super happy for him. He's a great guy. I would love to chat with him about how he came up with that valuation. How much was the land? How much was the house? Or was it even more land? Was the house only $1 million, and they value the land at 2.5? Because that'd be 25,000 an acre for 100 acres. That's still not crazy. 25 an acre in Fayetteville, Manlius is not a crazy high price. Or is it the other way? Was it 10,000 an acre for $1 million, and then the house is 2.5? I would just love to know how both Sean, the listing agent, and whoever bought it. I would love to know how they broke it down. Now, again, we don't know what it's under contract for. And it's very possible that it's under 3. I'm just thinking the fact that it was only on for 31 days, it sold very quickly for a house in this price range, makes me think it's probably north of 3, or maybe in the very high 2s. I doubt they just sold it in a month for 2.2 million. My guess is this is going to end up being at least in the high 2s, if not in the low 3s. Now, clicking through this house, it is. Oh, actually, something interesting about this house. So this was owned by Russell King, who is a relatively famous architect, at least for Syracuse standards. And so he designed like the SU Law Library, I believe. And so he's been around. So he died this past April. So it's in an estate, but this was his house. So in general, the opportunity to buy a famous architect's house, presumably they probably did a pretty nice job building it, and you would think they wouldn't have skimped on materials and things like that. So in general, if you're gonna spend a bunch of money on someone's house, buying an architect's house is a pretty good way to go. But it really is beautiful. I just want to click through a little bit of it. Hang on, I've got to refresh the page because the view is something. So the interior, it's got like all the raw wood timber. It's actually, when was it built? 1998. I was gonna say this is kind of a 90s thing. Having raw wood trim. That's my house was built in the 90s, and it has raw wood trim. I quite like it. It's not exactly in as far as modern, but especially with the knotty pine everywhere. It really does look very, very nice. But what's interesting is like the kitchen. It's a great kitchen. Is it a $3.5 million kitchen? I don't know. You tell me. What do you guys think? Is this a $3.5 million kitchen? I could make it work, certainly. What's always fun too. I don't know if you guys are the same. Kind of a guilty pleasure is you look at all these expensive listings and think like, well, so what would I buy? And this is a lot more. This is up my alley as far as I like a lot of land. I like a view. I like being a close drive to places while feeling like you're in the middle of nowhere. I'm not a big neighbor guy, and this checks a lot of those boxes. So for me, this is a particularly special one. But just your views out of just your generic sitting rooms. But then off of the porch, this was interesting actually. This is the primary bedroom on the first floor, and they didn't have a window here, which I'm always a fan of. You have your bed facing the view, so you wake up with the view. It's still, hey, if you're a side sleeper, you still get the view out the side. I'm just surprised they didn't do a window right in front. And again, it's a really nice primary bathroom. Is it a $3.5 million primary bathroom? You tell me. It's a nice walk-in closet. Is it a $3.5 million walk-in closet? And these are the other bedrooms. They're upstairs. So the whole upstairs is just like a catwalk with 2 bedrooms on either side. And so these are pretty small bedrooms. They're not huge secondary bedrooms. So it's built around that primary bedroom. Now it does have a finished basement, and this I believe is in the finished basement. This 4th bedroom with an ensuite bathroom. I really want to find. I thought there was a picture of the view. Yeah, here we go. So this is still not a perfect picture of the view. It's also, I would love to know, looking at these 100 acres, I'd love to know, so this is arable land. This is being actively farmed. My understanding is that those, you don't really pay very much to lease the farmland. Is like $75 an acre or something like that. So, even 100 acres, which this is obviously not, this whole thing is 100 acres, this portion of it's, maybe 40. But but it just seems like that would be a relatively inconsequential amount of money on the scale of $3.5 million. But anyway, I'd love to see a breakdown of that. Because they didn't really have a great shot of the view, but it does have an absolutely beautiful view. But so anyway, so when this house originally got listed, two other houses immediately came to mind because I saw that list price and I was like, oh man, this may end up being like a couple other houses I've seen which have been difficult to sell. And so one of them is this guy here, which is still on the market. This is 6987 Frank Long Road. Now it's on 12 acres, not 100, but it's 8,000 square feet. So it's twice the size, 5 bed, 7 bath, 5 full, 2 half. And it also has a promontory view, and it's very, isolated, and, it has a lot of the same qualities. Now, it doesn't have 100 acres. It's got a tenth of that. But it is still a beautiful custom-built home. You can see, we've got the raw wood finishes again. That new house that went under contract very much reminded me of this house. And this house originally was listed for $2 million. They slowly dropped the price. They took it off the market. They relisted it for 1.5, slowly dropped the price. And you can see they're at 1.3. And this has been on 224 days. This is the second time it's been listed, and it's been on for 224 days. So they just had a really hard time selling this house. And that's no shade on anyone, whoever I'm not even sure who the list agent is or who it was the first time. It's just difficult to sell in this price range. There's just not a ton of buyers in this price range for non-lake houses. And so I'm, no shade on anyone, but this was the first one that came to mind when I saw that. And I saw that list price, $3.5 million. I was like, man, how many people are there in Central New York who aren't in the lake house category, who need a primary residence, who are looking in that $3 million plus price range. But anyway, this was a very interesting and beautiful house, but it reminded me of that. And then the other one it reminded me of was this one over here on Braxton Circle. Now this one is under contract. So this one was originally listed for $2.85 million. It was on the market for a while, got taken off, and then it got relisted for $2.2 million, and then now it's under contract. My guess, I don't know, my guess is this is actually under contract for under $2 million. So my guess is this is going to be in the high ones, but not into the twos. Which again, we've theoretically skipped the twos altogether and gone straight to a $3 million. Now the only sale I could find in the $2 million range in the last or ever, on public record. Now there may have been private sales that I don't have access to, but of the public sales, is this one right here, which is actually in the this is in a similar neighborhood to another very expensive home that sold. But this was listed for $2 million, sold for $2,025,000. Now this was in 2020. So I would be curious to know, because nothing else has touched this price point, and this is, 6,800 square feet. I would love to know, was this an out-of-state person, who, had a lot of money to spend? I would love to know what happened here, because we haven't seen another sale touch $2 million. Now, it's a beautiful house, obviously. Don't get me wrong. Massive house, beautiful. But this one, so these two were the ones that this new listing reminded me of, and they both had trouble selling. This one did not, though. So, awesome job, Sean. Super happy for Sean. He's a great guy. But I'm very curious to know when this closes, assuming it does, what that sales price ends up being. Did we blast all the way through the twos and we're into the threes? Or is it in the high twos? Is it in the mid twos? And someone's getting a famous architect's house on 100 acres. So that's awesome. But anyway, I want to move on to some other houses. So, this was the highest sale this year in Fayetteville, Manlius. And so this is kind of off of, this is actually in a similar location as this $2 million one. These two are very close to each other. They're in the same neighborhood. And let me just look. So this is 6,857 square feet and built in 2016 on 2.6 acres. This is a very similar size, built in 1997, and it's on, closer to 3 acres. So just interesting that there's a $600,000 difference between these homes. Do with that information what you will. But anyway, some new listings that came up this past week. So this on Hunt Lane has been listed numerous times now, and always for around $1 million. So this is now a new listing. It's been on the market for 3 days, but I believe this is the third time this has been listed. This, I believe, has been on the market for years. And what's interesting is, it's big, 6,600 square feet, 4 bed, 6 bath, 3 full, 3 half. It's on 7 acres, almost 7.5 acres. Built in 1958 though, which is interesting. A lot of those mid-century homes are much more modest than this. But then this one, if you if you look through these pictures, and I am not a home decor specialist, I'm not a stylist. This gives me Russian oligarch vibes though, which is just not typical of houses in central New York. There's not a lot of houses with white marble everywhere. This one also has an interesting layout where it's like the whole house is centered around this central room here. It's almost like a courtyard, but it's a room. You know, it's got like a fountain and a piano. I guess the idea is for entertaining. You know, you have people coming in and out of the of the room with the piano. But even the primary bedroom. So we've got like a living room over there. But yeah, we've got the fountain. But this is the primary bedroom over here. Another living room over here. But it's all like you can see the bed through there. It's like it's centered around this room. So I assume it's the intention was for entertaining. You've got the living room, the dining room. And everyone kind of goes through those different areas. But this will be fascinating to see when it sells, what it sells for, and who it sells to. Is that someone who's planning on kind of redoing it, or is it someone who kind of likes the vibe it currently has? Because that changes the math dramatically. If you like parquet floors and white marble everywhere, then awesome. You're not going to have to do much to it. If you're someone who goes, I want to, make this a more modern aesthetic and I want it to kind of match other houses in the area, this is going to take a huge amount of redoing, which is really going to dramatically change how much you're willing to pay for the house. So this is an interesting one. We'll see what happens with it. Then a couple more that got listed. So this one caught my eye because it is on Route 5, which is a pretty busy road, and it was built in 1930. So it's one of those older houses that's pretty close to the road, built in 1930. It does have the 2 full baths, and they definitely did some updating to it before they moved out. So it's got the LVP floors, it's got modern appliances, newer kitchen, that type of thing. And also, I am far from perfect and not detail oriented, but we got a camp chair in the living room pictures. Come on. But beautiful kitchen. So it'll be interesting to see what this goes for, because that $325 price point is a very competitive price point. There's a lot of buyers in that price range, but kind of the downsides are it's right on Route 5, which is a very busy road. Cars are driving fast, and there's a lot of them. And then it was built in 1930, and so these the second story, I'm actually not sure what the height of the ceilings of the second story is. Yeah, they actually look fine. Usually you can tell by the doorways. So if there's much ceiling above the doorways, you're okay. So this is actually going to be okay probably on the second story. But this one caught my eye. It's also got the fenced yard, which is really nice. If you're going to be on a main road, having a place to let the dog out and not be worried they're going to run on the road is super nice. But so this one caught my eye. That'll be interesting to see how quickly it sells and what it sells for. And then another one that popped up, 220 Palmer. So this will be interesting. It's listed for 225. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot house. So there are a ton of these all over central New York. There's actually not that many in Fayetteville, Manlius, but they're all over, North Syracuse and Liverpool, and they're this mid-century. Let's see, when was this built? Yeah, 1954, mid-century, post-war. It's got the single bay garage. It's got the 1 bathroom. It's 1,000 square feet. The bedrooms are going to be small, and then this one in particular needs a fair amount of updating. So this is nobody's definition of a modern kitchen. I'd probably have to see these hardwoods in person to make a determination on if they need to be redone. But it's not a fully updated house by anyone's calculation. So it's going to be interesting to see what this ends up selling for. Because I could see this going one of two ways. I could see the people going, look, it's an affordable and it's in Fayetteville Manlius School District. I'll pay whatever I have to and I'll update it myself. And great, now I've got a house in Fayetteville Manlius. The problem here being you're always going to be limited by the 1 bath. Just modern buyers are really looking for at least the extra half bath. And then 1,000 square feet is going to mean all 3 of your bedrooms are really going to be quite small, as is your bathroom. So you're kind of always going to be limited by that. This is actually relatively common. The only basement access is through the garage, which is fine, except this is Syracuse, and December, January, February, March, and most of April, and probably most of November, it's freaking freezing cold. So you got to walk through your freezing cold garage to get to the basement. But there's a ton of space down there, a ton of storage down there. That just always it's not ideal when houses are laid out that way. But so this will be interesting to see, like, what is the small 3-bed, 1-bath, needing updating home sell for in FM. This will be an interesting one to track. Okay, then houses that went under contract. So this is one of my listings. So this went under contract. We were on the market for 10 days. And we'll see, how everything goes as far as closing. But this went very well. So that's good. So this is the 4-bed, 2-bath Cape. We see this all over the place. So you can see this one is on Clark Road, but there was one 319 Southfield. I actually represented the buyers on that one, and then there was one on Vollmer as well, which was essentially the exact same house. Now different levels of upgrade and different styles and things like that, but the exact same build from the same time period. So these seem to be in the mid 300s. So that's kind of a good mark moving forward to keep in mind, those 4-bed, 2-bath Capes. And then this one was interesting because it is a tiny little baby house. 974 square feet, 1 bed, full bath. Now what's interesting is 974 square feet is obviously small, but for only 1 bed, that's actually not that bad, right? So you can have a pretty substantial living room, dining room, and bedroom, and bathroom, and kitchen if you're not trying to add 2 and 3 bedrooms. If you've only got 1 bedroom, 974 square feet can actually be quite nice. And this is why I say all the time, every house in Syracuse cash flows. Now, obviously there are exceptions, but this house would rent for $3,000 a month. So if again, I don't know what it sold for. It was on the market 11 days. It's plausible to me that they got multiple offers. It got bid up. It's also plausible to me it just got, it got bought at $200,000. This is not going to be exact, but this is relatively close to your monthly payment on that. And this would rent for $3,000 a month. It's also just a super cute house. Now the thing is with this one, Brickyard Falls, that's, if you live in Fayetteville, Manlius, the bottle return center is right here. So it's that left turn when you're going up 173 onto Brickyard Falls. So Brickyard Falls is a relatively main road. And so it's right on the corner of Brickyard Falls and Fawn Ridge. So it's a little bit of a busy road. It's still a neighborhood road. It's not like people are flying at 55. It's a little, it would be more desirable if you were up, Fawn Ridge or, on one of these Everglades. And there's some really high end houses, when you get onto, Pauley Drive and up a little bit further. But it'll be interesting to see what this ends up going for. And it was really well done. And I was like, man, I could live there. Like, that's awesome. That's a sweet little house. So that's a unique one. And also, it was unclear to me what they were counting the second floor as. Is that, are they counting that as the bedroom, or is that not counted as the bedroom? They obviously have a bed in it, but is that counted in your square footage or not? So I would love to have a little bit better breakdown. I believe they were saying that it was not counting the second floor in the square footage. So for what that's worth, but I don't quote me on that because I'm not positive. Okay, moving on to other houses that are under contract. So this one, 308 Collin, this has been on the market for a long time. It's been on over 3 months. I showed this house a couple times. It needed, it was, it's in an estate and it needed a lot of updating. So like the windows in particular were like an emergency. It was like these windows are going to have to get done ASAP. And it was built in 1923, so it's got all very old windows. Now, some of them are the same size, but some of them are custom size. And so I was pegging, so I figured this was going to need at least 150-ish thousand worth of work. It was also a little bit of a goofy layout, 6 bed, 2 full bath. One of the full bathrooms is on the first floor off the kitchen. Not particularly usable. The second full bath upstairs was quite nice, but there was no like primary bathroom. Now, if you could add a primary bathroom, because there's 6 bedrooms, you don't need 6 bedrooms. You get dramatically diminishing returns once you get 4 bedrooms and up. The difference between 4 and 5 and then 5 and 6 is getting smaller and smaller. A 5-bed, 3-bath would be much more valuable. So if you could, if you did turn this into a 5-bed, 3-bath, it would dramatically increase the value. Which actually, let me see, there was another one. Yeah, this guy is also on Collin Ave. And so it's a 5-bed, 4-bath, so 3.5. So kind of similar. Now it's 3,000 square feet, whereas this one is only 2,000 square feet. So, this one, when it's done, is not going to be worth $575, but it would at least be at least be 500,000. So if you could get it for $250 and put $150 into it, you're in it for $4. It's worth $5. Not bad. So it'll be interesting to see what this ends up selling for. But this was an interesting one that I showed a couple times. Okay, then we've also got pending. This one was another one of my listings. I love this house so much. It's at the end of Hunt Drive. It's on a dead end street. There's literally zero traffic. It's a newer build, 2006. I didn't actually realize that there were these newer builds at the end of Hunt Drive, Homewood, McLennan, Cleveland. When you get to the end of these roads, some of these are newer builds, and it was just gorgeous. And like these sellers did such an amazing job with this house. Brand new carpets and just like their styling and everything was like a 10 out of 10. And when I first showed up at their house to do the listing appointment, it wasn't like they had prepped their house for me. And it looked 99% the same as this. Like this is just how they live in general. Like this is not staged. This is just how they live. So these guys were just absolutely awesome. But yeah, so we got this under contract. Super happy about that. But this was a really cool house. And this like perfectly fits the needs of the modern buyer, where we've got the big primary suite with the ensuite bathroom, multiple walk-in closets. There's a finished basement. So these folks both work from home. One has as you can see here, has an office upstairs. One has an office in the basement. It's kind of perfect for the needs of the modern buyer. So this is like an ideal house for modern family formation and yada yada yada. So that was pumped to get that one under contract. Then this one I showed, and this is on Warren Street. So this is in this area here. So Warren Street and everything along East Genesee. So Elm, and then Warren, Walnut, Chapel, all these, Academy. These all have a lot of really older homes. This is 1826, so just about 200 years old. This was a really cool house. So it's got the main house. I actually want to skip to the This shows, so it has this in-law suite that is plumbed. So it's got a full bathroom. They're calling it a primary bedroom. If someone needed a home office, it's hard to imagine a more perfect house. And it's got a laundry room in this. So if a work from home person or just someone who needs a dedicated man cave, she shed, anything like that, that was super cool. The problem was obviously. Built in 1826, so you're going to discover problems home ownership wise, but it was really the bathroom setup that was a problem. So there was a half bath on the first floor, which is a converted closet, which is, again, that's fine. Like it's better to have than not have, but it was really the full bath was the problem. You could see this like skinny little so the toilet was perched up here, the shower was to the left. That's there's no storage in the vanity because it's very tight. And that's something I always tell buyers is like, the bathroom, you're using that every day, so like if you are annoyed about the size of a second, a guest room, that's something you only have to worry about, a couple times a year. If your bathroom is annoying to use, that is something that's going to drive you crazy every single day of your life, multiple times a day. So that was kind of the quote unquote downfall of this one from my perspective. The rest of it was absolutely beautiful. Like this kitchen is great. Trying to get back to that. Here was that ensuite, in-law suite, with the full bathroom and everything. Super cool. And also the setting of this one was like amazing. Like this is like straight out of the Lord of the Rings, this setting here. And then it's got this huge side yard. It's a double lot. So you got all this side yard too. So there was just so much about this house I loved, as long as you could live with the bathroom situation. Let me just show on the, so this shows that, so how many bedrooms you got? So you got 3 bedrooms, but it's counting the one on the in-law suite. So the main house itself has 2 bedrooms. This one's a perfectly functional size. This one was pretty small, and then the bathroom here, you could just see how tight all this is, and that's your main primary bathroom. You're going to be using that every day, multiple times a day. So that was so interesting to see what this one ends up selling for. It was only on the market 7 days, so I bet it went over. But for anyone that needs a home office, this was a 10 out of 10, and like that side yard, the setting, all that. If you like old houses, it's beautiful. So that'll be a cool one to track. Then this one was also a cool home. This was Chip Hodgkin's listing, and so it was on, how many acres is this on? Yeah, 2.5 acres, and it's kind of tucked away. It's so if you go up Salt Springs, and then you have to pull in Strawberry Lane, and then there's like this private driveway that like swings all the way around. So it's like quote unquote only on 2 acres or 2.5 acres, but like it feels like you're in the middle. It feels like you're on 100 acres. It was really interesting though because it's a very rocky area, and so it's just on a slab, and then the well is actually inside of the house because this was an addition, and the well was on the side of the house originally. Then they built the addition on on the well. And so, when I showed this, my buyers were wondering, like, if you ever had to take that well out, like, if it comes out in 12-foot chunks, but it's in a utility room that's only 8 feet tall, like, how do you even get the well out? So, and we didn't get answers to that necessarily. And maybe it's in 6-foot chunks or 8-foot chunks and it'd be fine. But this was kind of a super quirky house, but very, very cool. You could see this, this long winding driveway with the pool there as well. And then this had a couple other. This fireplace, this picture does not do it justice. This is the single coolest fireplace I've ever seen in any house ever. It's massive, just super super cool. This whole room was like one of my favorite rooms in any house I've ever been in. This is still not doing it justice. This fireplace was a true 10 out of 10. And it's nice and open, so it's off the kitchen too. So like, you've got the kitchen, the dining room, and then the sitting area with the fireplace. Super neat. Then the other thing was the entryway, with the black and white tile with the chandelier, just really, really cool. This railing though was like really short. I'm not sure exactly what code is, but this was one where I was like, man, I feel like I might flip over that thing. But super cool house. So congrats to Chip getting that under contract. That's awesome. That was a cool one. Then this is already getting longer than I intended, so maybe we'll just fly through the last couple. This one was only on the market 5 days, and it went 60 over asking, 15% over asking. Now, it was a very unique house, very cool house. You've got the second full bath, which is always nice. You got 4 beds, but it was really the basement pool area that it's got a nice kitchen. It's got a nice everything. Let me just find. So this is the basement area. So you got like the pool table, walks out to the pool. It's got a sauna, day bed. I mean, this basement area is super cool, and there's a full bathroom down here as well. There's the bathroom. It's got a laundry room. It's got a greenhouse, and then they've got another storage area where obviously they've got it set up for a home gym. Beautiful pool. When was this built? 1959. Mid-century. This was a super cool one, though. I was not surprised that this went way over asking. This was a fun one. Okay, and then the last two, let's go real quick. So this was interesting to me. It's on Elm Street, which is one of those that has a lot of really old houses. So this was 1853. 3 bed, 3 bath, 2 full, 1 half. Now, the thing with this one is 1,500 square feet. Now, this is what I always say. If you're wondering, if you're clicking through pictures and you're not sure the height of the ceilings in the second floor, what you need to do is look at the doorways and how high the ceiling is above the doorways. So this is at the doorway height. So that's how you know that this second floor is compromised height-wise. So if you're 6 feet and up, you're going to notice that these have extremely low ceilings. So that's why I was and it was on the market 17 days, sold at asking price. That's a good number. That's a good sale for the sellers. But this one, I was interested to see what it went for, because those second floor low ceilings, are a deal breaker for some percentage of people. Okay, and then the last one we already talked about, so that's on Collin Ave. So that's what ideally, kind of the finished product of 208? I don't remember what it was, but of the other Collin Ave house. So anyway, if you're interested in buying or selling in Fayetteville, Manlius, give me a call. My contact info is in the